with the focus this evening on networking and modern selling. My name is Luisa. I'm a program and project manager in this exciting startup in Berlin. And we've got a wonderful lineup today with top speakers from the networking and sales fields. So we will be starting with, let's just go through the agenda. A welcome speech by Mario, who's the founder and CEO of Club Globals, followed by the first panel discussion on networking reinvented. And then you will be mesmerized by Wai, who's connected all the way from Warsaw to show us some magic, followed by a panel discussion on modern selling, and followed by an online and offline networking session. Before we start, I would first like to let you know that there is a Q&A session in the Zoho webinar, so on the top left. You can ask the question, any burning questions that you have, and we'll try to answer them at the end of the panel. And without any further ado, I give the field to Mario.
All right, thanks, Luisa. Thanks, guys. The very limited group that we have here. Thanks for joining us online. Thanks for the adventures offline. We are all legal, less than 10 people, distant, with mask, everything. Sorry for the technical hiccups, but we're ready to ramble now. And so I had an amazing presentation and tell you a story about the future networking. I'll keep it super short because we already have 10 minutes. The only thing I'll just mention, I also reinvent myself and I come up with a new website, MarioPaine.com. You can check it out. It's crazy stories about networking, people with the glasses. So people who knows, you may see me with different color of glasses. The reason of the glasses is I change my objective. They change the color of the glasses based on the next objective. Now it's the green glasses to take global to all international cities. And so why glasses? So maybe for networking it's a good story. In networking, it's called what is it? So people come to you and say, look, what is this crazy story with the glasses? You don't have lenses. Tell me more. And this is an opener. Maybe it's wearing a cap, wearing a scarf, wearing a pin, wearing whatever like make you stand out. That's a networking trick. It's called what is it in the networking, and maybe you find your own whatever is make you happy, and you stand up in the audience. So I'm very honored to have this panel here because I have from all my career story, from Oracle doing international sales with Ramsey, organizing events with Chem, last week with Michael. So great speakers we have around. Also online, I see also that Octavio from Brazil, Nico from the US. So I'm very honored to have amazing knowledge and experience in the networking and sales. So I will stop talking and I'll start moving to the next part that is the main part, and is the networking. So Luisa, the stage is yours. I pass it to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Mario. So I'll give a brief introduction. We have Chem here, founder of Startup Night. Mario you just saw, Michael Chaffee from the Wolf Summit, Nico, founder from Tech Open Air. He's joining us all the way from the US. And we have Octavio, who's Chief Networking Officer at TAC and 10 Club. So I'll let Nico and Octavio introduce themselves, and then I suggest we do a short roundtable for the offline speakers.
A conference wait, I'm just I think close one window so I don't have the echo. Tech Open Air, TOA, sorry about that, just had to close the window, which is a festival. And obviously during Corona, we are doing more and more of the formats that typically would take place in an actual conference, trade show, festival type of environment in the virtual space. But our mission remains the same. We want to help people, organizations, and the planet become more future-proof, and we believe that for that to happen, we need inspiration, we need learning, and we need to connect people surrounding the topic of technology. So we are an interdisciplinary event where we bring together technologists with representatives of other disciplines, anything from the academia world to politics, to media, to large corporation enterprise, German Mittelstand, and the creative economy.
Great,
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Nico. Octavio. Yeah.
Unmute. Second unmute.
Go ahead.
Hello. I'm glad to be here. My name is Otávio Italuga. I'm from Brazil. I'm based in Rio. And thank you so much, Mario, for inviting me for this event. I met Mario more than 10 years, 15 years ago, by the time I had some hair, and through social networks. And what I have been doing is I created the concept of a chief networking officer. Chief networking officer is a business networks management. The question is, where do you want to be and with whom do you want to get there? So what's your ideal network in terms of all stakeholders, your clients, your investors, media contacts, and so on and so forth. So we need to map all these out. And then in this regard, I am one of the Brazilian connected people on LinkedIn, and I created my own application with StackTech. That is a contact manager, is a minimum, is a LinkedIn very minimalist, so that you can have your digital business card, for example. We could exchange our business card with everybody in this audience, so that you can keep in touch and integrate this with social media, CRMs, and other platforms. So we're here to contribute, hopefully, with this chief networking officer concept, and how can you use the tools in order to create your ideal network. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. We'll be moving to the table, so bear with me. So the online setting is quite a new one for us as well. So let's start with our guest speakers. Cem, would you like to start?
Yeah, why not? Hi guys. I'm Cem. I'm the founder of Startup Night and a member of Deutsche Telekom. And Deutsche Telekom, of course, we're a global telecom operator and work within the startup ecosystem for quite some time. And many years ago, we founded Startup Night to support the ecosystem in Germany first, and then later on also Europe and globally. So we had Startup Nights in Dubai, was like the first way. We had a few in different cities in Germany with a goal to bring startups together with investors, community and business angels, etc. And the difference maybe to other festivals or shows is that all startups get their booth and they're actually the main attraction. This is what we're doing. And this is what we're doing this year also due to Corona digitally for the first time. And to pass over to Wolf Summit, maybe we will also use Hopin as a platform then for the first time, and we're curious how that works out and hear more how it worked out.
Thanks for that intro. Hi everybody, nice to see you all wherever you're located. My name is Mike. I organise the Wolf Summit conference in Warsaw. Traditionally it was twice per year, around 2,500 delegates would attend. Back in March we were forced to go fully virtual, which I'm happy to say we did so very successfully using the Hopin platform. And just last week we were honoured to welcome Mario and the team to Warsaw, where we had a very productive and engaging 3 days. So the event started on Monday evening at the Cambridge Innovation Centre, where we had our investors that attend the event. They attended physically at the Cambridge Innovation Centre, followed by day one of the conference on the Tuesday, which culminated in a networking event in the evening. And then finally, on last day, which was Wednesday, we had the finals of the Great Pitch Contest. So on day one, 50 startups pitched in front of a room full of investors, both who were present physically and on the Hopin platform. And then on day two, the final 8 had a pitch-off where the final winners were chosen. And then we went on to a gala dinner and festivities. It's good to be here again with everybody.
Well, thank you very much for that. If you could also add to that, why do you think you have been selected to take part in this networking event?
So pretty much when we were discussing last week at the CIC, and Mario just broached the subject, look, you're in, just so everybody's aware, I live in Wrocław with my, well, not together, but my friend Trevor here, we drove from Wrocław, so Breslau in German, which is about 3 hours away. So Mario suggested, look, do you want to come to my first networking event next week? So I said, sure, sounds like a blast. And here we are.
Well, networking is a part of the game if you do events, right? So it's about meeting people there. If you're there as a company, you want to meet investors, maybe potential customers. And so you need to go out there and talk to people, right?
Okay.
So Michael, following on what you just said about Wolf Summit, so it's one of the largest tech conferences in the CEE regions. Can you tell us more about the experience? So what advantages does each of the formats, both offline and online, have?
So obviously we came to own the summit last year, and we actually, before last week, we only hosted one event physically, and that was in October 2019. And it was a completely different vibe, obviously, because of the circumstances. But what I noticed from last week is that after months of so much screen time and virtual networking, it was almost like people were just enamored with the realization that, look, we're humans again. We can go back and meet with each other, exchange tips and contacts in person. So there was a lot of energy from that, which was really great to see. Also, I think it's important to remember that the digital aspects are very hard to replicate the value, particularly in terms of number of connections and global reach. So the way I see networking going forward is to be more of a hybrid model whereby, small personal in-person gatherings combined with large-scale virtual networking.
Chen, if you could tell us about what you think the most important skills in networking for success are, and how can one adapt those skills to an online setting?
Well, I would say that openness and authenticity is like the most important thing in being a networker, right? You have to go out there and maybe even step out of your comfort zone here and there, right? Try new things because maybe you feel uncomfortable to approach people because you want something from them. But you have to do that, right? Because you want something from yourself, for your company or whatever. So if you're curious and expect that people don't do harm to you, which is usually the case, right? Because everyone is sort of curious and likes to meet people and exchange, learn about how other people see things, do things, so you get better by yourself. That's what networking is all about, right? And the most important part, I think, is you have to be authentic, right? You have to be you. And if you pretend, this will be very fast, hitting back on you and be not good for yourself in any way.
Is there a large difference with the virtual networking rather than the physical? Do you give off different signals?
Yes, of course, absolutely, right? So the physical one is much easier, right? You can actually stand in front anyone, right, and say like, hey, can we talk, for example, right? It's much easier in an online world to say like, unmute or disconnect or whatever, right? Or I don't want to be disturbed or whatever, right? So but in being trying to approach someone, it might be online even easier, right? Because you don't see maybe in person the rejection if he does not want to talk to you or so, right? So it might be easier to approach things. You have to try it out either way, right? But trying and making that first step, moving out of your comfort zone, I don't think there will be much of a difference online or offline.
Turning to Mario, how is it possible to successfully network online? With your new website that you've launched, I suppose that's...
No, with my website, for sure not. I think success in online, and that's something that we've been doing early stage with some corporates. We call it social selling, but now it's all about building relationships, no? And what technology is bringing us, and that also an example is I was the founder also the first electronic Rotary Club. So that's an example of a dinosaur old organization that used to meet very personal and offline, and how we introduced technology, like online meeting. We started there like almost 10 years ago, starting online meetings, and how a huge organization is all based on networking, how we can make it alive and to reach more people. So I think the key with this organization, with this online new world is use the technology to fast forward the relationship, get to know as much as you can as people, find in LinkedIn, learn as much so you can quickly find the common interest that you have between the person you want to reach. Always have a plan. Networking in this city, you can network every day, you can get lost with events and everything, so you need to be focused, have a plan, understand who you want to meet, and then go to a guest list, see who is there, the speakers, try to get an introduction, that's the best way. Warm introduction. If you know the host, if you know the moderator, whoever, hey, I would like to meet with Michael, when you make an introduction. And online as well is the same. Try to warm up the relationship with social networks, and then when you join online, it's a faster to build and jump into a more concrete relationship. Huh?
What are the do's and don'ts of networking, and is there a difference for online do's and don'ts and offline do's and don'ts?
Do's and don'ts. I think the technical is very important. Have a good connection of internet, have a good light, have a good camera, good audio as well. I think turn off all your other internet services, focus center in the camera, be presentable as well. Just because it's online doesn't mean you can be with your pajama, whatever. Just try to keep the whatever the attire of the conference is, just be aligned with that. And those are the quick tips. Maybe you guys can share more advanced do's and don'ts online. We'll pass with the online speakers soon. We're gonna get back to them.
Well, in terms of offline do's and don'ts, of course, it's, you always have to respect the person you're talking to, right? So you have this if some people are touchier than others, for example. So you need
a culture there as well.
It's a culture, yeah.
It's a culture stuff.
It's a cultural thing. Like, and some people are, bound. You as South Americans, me as a half Turkish, half Italian, we touch, right? And that's not a problem and not offending. Others are really afraid, so you need to be aware that people see things differently. So this is a don't. Don't be too fast in approaching people and being too open, maybe in physical ways.
I think there, reading body language is also very important. No?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
If you're talking with somebody in front and you see the feet of the person is pointing in another direction than your direction, he wants to get away. So let him go. So save his time. He will appreciate. So those are the things that are the tips. Read the people's body language.
Yeah, and I think in terms of just simple things, in the amount of times how many times you have colleagues who are always on mute and it's always the same suspect. The conversation goes to them. So it's almost like a digital etiquette that people can observe whilst they're using Zoom or any other video platforms to communicate. And I think be direct. When we made our sponsor outreach for Wolf Summit, there was no faffing around. It was very much, hi, Trevor, very nice to meet you. I'd like to approach you about being involved as a partner in our event. And people appreciate it because there's nothing more cringy than getting a LinkedIn request from
blah blah blah.
I won't go into different where the requests come from, but you get a request and there's a big 2 or 3 paragraphs and then the punchline at the end. So just get it out in the first sentence. You'll either get a rejection or an acceptance, and people will appreciate it, in my opinion.
But that's a good one in terms of LinkedIn. I have 500 open connections with I don't know where they're coming from, and not a word of greeting, and it's that's ridiculous. So I'm totally going.
Go online. All right, we're moving online to our speakers online to give the stage.
Exploration, and then later as a business grows, goes into the exploitation. Or maybe within a business, you go through cycles, right? You have a cycle where you're more exploration driven, where you're looking for new ideas, where you're open for new collaborations, for new business. And there's phases where you're more on the exploitation, where you have a very concrete goal, you have a very concrete product that you may want to promote. And then that kind of divides a little bit the strategy in terms of, how wide are you actually putting out the net to fish, and what is the offering, right, that you are pitching to whoever you want to meet. But generally, I would say, maybe some tips on my strategy. A warm introduction is always the best. So whenever I can, I try to get somebody else to introduce me to the person that I want to be in touch with. So I try to really avoid a direct cold outreach, but we have done it, and we have also at TOA done it successfully with some speakers. Cheryl Sandberg is a good example from Facebook. We sent her 8 emails cold, didn't know anybody who could introduce us, got the email off the internet, wrote her 8 times, she didn't answer the 9th email she answered. And since then, actually, there's a conversation going. And so then those emails, we're doing a lot of experimentation around, like, what works, what are the type of emails that in a cold outreach have a better chance of success. And of course, it's helpful if you can somehow make it personal, but also make it basically beneficial to the other person. Right? Time is so limited for everybody in business, but also in life, and the clock is running. So everybody, of course, wants to also hear what they get out of the meeting with you. So I try to make that very clear in the requests that we do. But I would say generally, I try to steer away from these type of cold outreach online, but actually get warm introduction. And now, I guess one thing we can share around sort of the virtual networking side for our attendees. We've been experimenting with it over the last few weeks. It feels like years, certainly, since COVID hit. And actually, I see really beneficial sides to doing online networking. It is fast, it is efficient. Yes, you lose some of the serendipity of maybe being at a coffee place and running into somebody, or having a conversation at a bar, at a conference that you may otherwise would not engage with the conversation with. So you miss that kind of magic of serendipity, but you make up for it with a much more efficient way of getting to meet the people that are relevant to your business. So I think online networking can't replace that magic. I think that's pretty much impossible. I don't know any way at the moment, at least, how we could recreate more efficient, ultimately more effective networking. Actually, is very, very well suited to the online virtual. And I'm very sorry, Mario knows that unfortunately I had a hard stop today, but I really wanted to join to say hello to Berlin. I love what Mario is doing, what Chen is doing. So greetings to everybody. Please forgive me that I actually have to go out. If you have another question, I'm happy to answer it. Otherwise, I will just wish you guys a really good event.
Thank you. You answered all the questions we had for you. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Octavio, that leaves the stage for you. So you coined the Chief Networking Officer concept on Wikipedia, which is quite a big deal. Can you tell us more about how you came about it?
Yes. In 2005, I was participating in one of those social networkings, and then I posted this question. What do you think of a Chief Networking Officer concept? And I got something like 350 comments about this issue. Then I realized, oh, we have something over here. Then I recorded my experience after the MBA when I became a marketing executive director, and I got a in a which I had no experience in the transaction processing business. So we were taking the transaction from the terminal, from a POS, PMS terminal, rotating it and taking to the buyer, the bank or a credit card company. So that was my challenge. And I was the only Brazilian inside the Swedish group. I had no connection whatsoever. I knew nothing about the business, and I was the only, the last attempt of the company to keep in business, because otherwise, if I failed in 2 weeks, 2 months, they would fire me. They would really shut down the company. And then I applied intuitively this concept of Chief Networking Officer. Okay, who are the guys? The banks, credit card companies, the POS. PMS manufacturers, clients, and my internal team. So let's optimize the management of this network. And so intuitively, I started acting myself as a chief networking officer in this task. And well, 1 year and a half later, the company was back on track. It was making money. We had got the clients to come and start getting receiving demands from other parts of the services on our global clients, and so it worked. Then I thought, okay, if this works, if you are in an emergency, if you are with limited resources, if you have a problem, a motivational problem inside the company, have a group, your team, and if you have clients who are really very angry with you, and you can get it back, let's talk, let's communicate. That's the way we do in step 1, 2, 3, short term, medium term, let's deliver it, of course.
Right.
Then it works. So if it's applicable to me, it was applicable to be in that situation, and applicable to anybody. So if you have, even only for an individual in your career, you consider yourself engaged statistically, who are the important people I need to connect with in order to make these partnerships. And medium-sized company, a business owner, or a large corporation. It's applicable anywhere. Doesn't matter how big you are, how young you are. So it's a very flexible concept.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now, without further ado, talking about Wikipedia, you'll understand during the magic trick, we're going to have to select a candidate. So unfortunately, Octavio, it doesn't apply to you. So we'll have to switch back to the other scene.
Make sure to follow what I do, okay?
Okay.
Go to the head like this. First of all, I'm going to tell you the secret. The secret is very simple. It's all about manipulating people. Okay? So just make sure to follow what I do, okay? Hands like this. Fingers like that. Okay, this time.
Oh, like that.
Okay, perfect. And everybody, everybody, just go like this. Out. And this is how we manipulate people.
Right, so thank you very much for your patience and the wise presentation. It was magic, and I assure you that in real life it really is magic. So we have some videos that we post online as well. So we're going to jump to the next panel. I'll let Olympia and Ramsey shortly introduce themselves.
Should I start? Okay. Hi, my name is Olympia. I'm the founder of the Women in Sales Network. It is a community for women who are working in the sales field, and the goal is to empower women to share their knowledge, and also for women who want to develop not only their careers but also knowledge and skills in sales. And that's really it.
Hello to everybody. Good evening. My name is Ramsey Musa. I'm actually since almost 20 years in the IT industry, always in sales or sales or roles very close to sales. At the moment I'm with SAP of almost 6 years, and there I'm heading the topic of demand generation for the mid-market, so to identify new business, but also to create best practices on how to engage with prospects and customers in the modern way. So what data do we need, what infrastructure do we need, what does really work in Europe and what does not work, and at the same time we are sharing these best practices internally with our sales force, but also with our partner ecosystem, because for us it's important that from a customer experience perspective, it's not just like there's no break once we engage partners.
Thank you for that. So just to smooth things over from the last theme, is networking part of sales, and does one need networking in order to do sales? So
I would say it goes together a little bit because if you're networking, you're doing sales for yourself a little bit, and I think it could support your product or whatever you want to share with other people.
I mean, it's still a people business. So even when online, people buy from people, and therefore the networking aspect I think is very important. I mean, I think if you would not like to network, you would probably not be in sales. I would say I think it's connected.
One often thinks of sales and business development as synonymous terms, but this really isn't the case. So maybe one of you could enlighten us.
I can start with, I mean, for me, like sales and business development is, I mean, it's a very vague terminology. Yeah. So for me, business development is a bit like, it's more like two aspects. There are different definitions out there from companies. So on the one hand, there are like business development team who do really acquire business, yeah, a new business, or it's more strategic role to create new business. Yeah. But both elements include, creating new business or the next business. Yeah. Whether sales for me is more short-term focused, many times quarterly focused, so it's really to bring in the actual numbers. Yeah? So business development, create future business, acquire future business, and sales to create actual business.
Nice. Very good.
We already discussed a little bit before, and actually he summed it up what we have been talking like for 20 minutes yesterday and today, so it's perfectly explained.
So I think also business development is like lead generation, creating new opportunities. I think sales more bring to a close. I think it's like working hand to hand.
One often thinks of sales as a male-dominated environment. Is this a changing trend, do you think?
Well, the good news is, yes, it is a changing trend. So if you compare statistics like 20, 30 years ago, we have much more women in sales, but there's, in average, I would say, depending on statistics, 35 to 40% women working in sales. Then it depends in which area and which department, so it's really hard to say per se how it is, but definitely we should have more women in sales. And I did a research, I'm still working on it, but I did a little research on it, and 70% of the people who were asked if we need more women in sales said yes. So definitely it is changing, but there's also a way to go.
I think a good point there is, and you start seeing corporations they're being more open for enabling the environment for women to come into sales. Since used to be in the past thinking, okay, I live it myself, well in other companies, like okay, here have a budget, take the customer out for party, for dinners and so on. And sometimes was environments that women were not. Now I see corporates that they're like not allowing budget for those kind of going out. So I think that will give the opportunity more for both sides to do business as well. I think if we start thinking all of them in that direction, I think we'll have more diversity as well.
And coming back to the title of the panel discussion, what is the difference between traditional and modern selling?
I mean, good question. So I think there are a lot of similarities. As I said, it's still people business, so I think the basic skills are the same. I think what has changed, I mean, if I compare it to the past, if you are a salesperson, you are engaging with much more educated prospects and customers. Yeah, they have done their research, they know what they're doing. Yeah, in the past they may have contacted you much earlier to give the first pitch. Now they did it themselves. Yeah, and you as a seller need to, put much more effort into it, yeah, to add value. Yeah, that's the first aspect. Second, I would say it's about multi-channel. Yeah, so it's not just one channel work. It's not just offline. It's not just online. It's maybe not just LinkedIn. In Germany, also Xing is relevant. So you need to be able, to deal in this environment and to be able to handle the tools, the processes, and whatever it needs to engage with prospects there. Yeah. And then related to this, and may jump in, is personal brand, because now it's becoming much more relevant. In the past, you more like in the shadow, of your corporate brand, then you go there. But now it's your corporate brand, but your individual brand. I mean, every person I meet, I do a quick research online, I Google the person, and I have a first impression before I have ever spoken with the person. Yeah? And this becomes much more relevant, and you need to be familiar with this.
Creating content as well. Content is key, and right, authority books, podcasts now. It's very hot. Everybody's doing podcasts now because of the pandemic. So
I'm working on one right now.
exactly. We also have global podcast. Join us, follow us. I think it's the technology there enabled us to be more outgoing. But I think personal brand is building relationship. I think is easier with technology, and I think that there's some good tools to make that happen.
Absolutely, and a big part of sales, I would say, as well.
And what drives organizations to adapt to the new way of selling?
Okay, I mean, it's like, some companies are really on the game. You know, they have enabled their sales force, they have rolled out, for example, LinkedIn Sales Navigator and so on, and some not. And I think for me it depends a bit on how urgent it is for you, because people don't like to change, companies don't like to change. So if you don't have a pressure, you will not do it as fast. Yeah? And I've seen companies changing very fast. If, for example, you are moving into a new market, so maybe you have served big customers in the past and you need to cover now the mid-market. So naturally, you are going to adapt these new techniques. Otherwise, you could not, handle this high number of customers. Yeah? It's also the products we're selling. For example, in SAP, we are moving very fast towards cloud sales business. Yeah? And in cloud sales, the decision-making process is different. The people you need to engage with are different than in the past. So it's not enough to just cover the IT. So the urgency is quite high, and therefore we are forced, especially in the mid-market, to push much faster to cope with the market. Yeah? And also whether you're a challenger or you're a market leader. If you're a market leader, it's more convenient. If you're a challenger, you need to have a fast speed and engage much more customer, much more sales cycles, much more competitive, and you can't do it in an old way. So you need to leverage these new technologies. And I think this is like, depending on the situation, it's more urgent or less urgent for you.
Yeah, there's a concrete example that I learned from this organization called Rotary International. They come to us and ask, okay, how can we get the new generation of leaders, the young leaders of this old men's organization? I was like, okay, there's 1.2 million members, the last 10 years, stagnation, how will we attract? And the best to change is the model of communicating with your audience. People today, they don't do postcards and letters. You need to do social networks and groups and interaction and be fast. So I think the organization that they see very early stage, the new way of communication, interacting, and also we need to learn as well. I mean, you see the kids are just sending pictures each other, so moving fast and catching up with the latest innovation is, I think, is crucial to, at the end, we need to be where our customers are. And if they're all hanging out in Instagram, then we need to figure out a strategy how to be there in Instagram.
Absolutely.
But it really depends on the industry,
Exactly.
and the audience. So, for example, if you are like a manufacturer in Bavaria, then probably you might not find the logistic people in Instagram or LinkedIn. Yeah? So we've seen like HR people very fast in social networks, sales people anyway, marketing people. So if you are selling product around this area, you will find them there. If you are like maybe in financing or whatever, a more traditional way, you still need to leverage the offline channel much more.
Mario, what do you think some companies struggle with implementing modern selling techniques?
I think some companies in general, they are adverse to they want to stay in the status quo. They know that something been working for years, and they're not so adverse to risk. And my recommendation is try a pilot. Remember the early stage we did Oracle, the social selling. We started with a small group. We started like learning by each other's, and then show some success. And then when you start showing some success, then you can inspire others to join as well. So,
and just to add, I think it's very, it's not like it's really a change project. You don't need to underestimate it. It's change management. Yeah, it's not like that you say, do a post and then you do the sell. It's like it needs continuity, and I think this is where people struggle with. It's like to implement a process which supports the sales force. So what content do they need at which time? What data do they need at which time? How do you feed them, and how do you lower the effort for them? Because most time you hear, I don't have time for social selling.
Time is money.
And this is not the way it should work. So you need to build the process around your sales force that the hurdle gets lower and lower, and the barrier, and that they can incorporate this in their day-to-day work. And I think this is where I see most companies and partners we talk with struggle.
Olympia, what do you think the motivation is for women to be in sales?
Well, at first I don't have the answer. I don't think anyone really has, but I'm working on a project where I try to find out. And one of the first things I noticed while having different interviews with people from really different backgrounds and different stages in their sales career, it's that women tend to be shyer than men and have the feeling to be super prepared and then outgoing. So I think the motivation is there that women are more or less a little bit shyer, let's say this. And also I think sales is not as popular as a field of work, not only for women but also for men. We also talked about it a little bit. And yes, I think this might be the reasons. For example, you learn in school or at university a lot about different kind of jobs, like marketing, for example. But there's no one who says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I want to be a salesperson, you know. So I think there's also a lot of work to do on this educational part of how amazing sales actually can be, because it's all about communication, about building relationships, and I think that this is something that women are really great at.
Just to add, from my experience, also like work flexibility is very important, especially for women. So you may traditional roles, you have a kid, you work part-time, and if you don't have fully flexibility on where you can work from, when you can work from, go up with your hours you work, go down with your hours you work, this makes a sales role less attractive, because you might have quarterly pressure, you are a bit driven by what the customers want, you are following a bit the customer journey, the way he buys, and the more flexibility you have, to deal with that, the more attractive it becomes for women.
I think a concluding question, and then we can wrap up on that. And each of you do a round table. What do you think the impact of sales, the impact of the pandemic had on sales, and what do you see for future developments? Mario, would you like to start?
Okay. Now, what I see actually in the sales force, and I see amazing companies that are leaving the flexibility, as Ramsey said, to the sales team to work from home, and even companies telling them that after the pandemic they can continue working from home. I see we saw more this openness to work remotely, and that's giving again opportunity for women to be more flexible and joining. People are ready and open to jump into a virtual coffee or to jump into build quick relationships, and that's one talking last week on the Wolf Summit as well. Was an investor offline. He got like 5 meetings, and his colleague online he got like 50 meetings. So we need to get ready to get a lot more action going on online, but we need to be very selective how to filter this, because now it's easy to reach all over the world, but we need to be okay. How can I focus in the right place?
What he said now. I can agree absolutely, but also I think the pandemic changed the way we communicate and interact. I mean, we cannot say hello to each other and hug each other right now as well. We have to keep distance, and if we have some meetings, we have to be careful. So this is one way it changed us and sales, and also to be able to technology, to use to it, to be open to technology as well. So I think these are the main factors. But also what I have realized and what I have seen is that most of the companies are doing really well with that, and most people are more agile than we actually thought. To make it quick.
No, I mean, just to add maybe, I think that the Corona has accelerated a bit the whole process of like digital and social, so because more customers are now available online, so in the past it was really nice to have, or not everyone was open to make a first meeting or second or third meeting, or to sign a contract even virtually, but Corona has changed this, so I think it has opened the space even more of the market for everything you do online and remote.
I think we've covered quite a few topics this evening, so I would all like to thank you for your patience, for participating. We will, of course, be organizing another event and hopefully with better connection. We would like to actually thank our sponsors, first of all, so IT Sales Group, as well as Connect2.